Okay, let's kind of set this story up and look at it a little bit. Keep in mind, first of all, that Jesus really knew his audience. I mean, Jesus grew up with people just like these. These were primarily small town people, primarily farmers, small shopkeepers, craftsmen, whatever. Now, these folks were very poor. If they were not at the very edge of poverty, they were not too many steps above it. And a lot of the reason for that was they lived in a very, very oppressive society. They were oppressed by their own Jewish leaders, they were oppressed by the Roman occupiers, and taxes were incredibly high. And that's a lot of the reason they were so near poverty. And so they understood what injustice was, what it was to live in a life that was unfair. Now, in his story, Jesus sets up these two characters, and they're at opposite ends of the social power structure. On the one end is this very arrogant, pompous judge who says, "I don't care about God or man." And if you were to ask him, well, why do you say that? He'd say, why should I? I don't owe anything to them. I wasn't elected. I was appointed by the king himself. That's Herod Antipas himself. Now, how did I do this? All me, buddy. I did some well-placed political favors, and I gave him a bundle of money. And so I get appointed judge of this district. And now what that means is when you come to me, you buy justice. When you come, you better come with some money, because if you can't outbid your opponent, guess who's going to get the judgment? Justice comes with the money. And so nobody can touch me. I'm free. I've got the king on my side, and beyond the king is the Roman Empire. Can't beat that combination. Now, the other end of the spectrum here is this widow. Now, it's never a good thing to be a widow anytime, but in that society, it was a dreadful thing to be a widow. And the reason for this is there was no real place you could fit in. And if you did not have family who could take you in, you were in a terrible strait, because the only way you could live would be to try to make a little money here, there, and everywhere, but primarily to live by the kindness and mercies of friends and neighbors. And so you really are down here. Well, now here's this little widow who probably was elderly and probably, I would guess, rather frail. But somebody has done something unfair, she feels. And so she wants justice. Well, she's going to go to the judge. But she's no dummy. She knows that before she goes, she's got two strikes against her. First of all, she's a woman. Women had no legal standing in the courts. And so a woman cannot bring a case to court. If a woman wanted to bring a case to court, some male relative would have to do it, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, whatever. The very fact that this woman has no male relative to do this tells us that she is all alone in the world, which is why I say she's probably elderly, probably very frail. But she's got spunk. She's going to go see the judge. So she goes to see the judge and says, I want justice. And predictably, he blows her off. Well, she comes again, and he blows her off. And again, and again, and again, and again, and then again. And I get a hunch he kind of enjoys this a bit. You see, he undoubtedly, when he blows her off, does it in the most humiliating fashion possible. Now, when he does this, he's probably around friends or coworkers or peers of some sort And they get a big laugh out of this. Or over a glass of wine in the evening, he could talk and tell about the experience with the widow once again. Ha, 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 see? Now keep in mind, through all of this, the people listening to Jesus know these characters. They know a judge just like that because he's in their district. And they have probably experienced their own injustice from him because they can't buy judgments. On the other hand, they would know a widow probably like this. And so here's the setting then. They're listening of this fella just humiliating this poor widow. And they may have been humiliated in the same manner. But this little widow is not going to take this. See, now, if I didn't know better, I'd swear this lady is Irish. I mean, she may have been an immigrant. Who knows, But she's not going to take this. Now, you got to get the picture image here. She's going to go to see this guy one more time. And he sees her coming and knows what's in her head. And the great line, you see, if you read the standard translations that have come up with, like, he's thinking to himself, I'd better pay attention to this lady or she's going to wear me out. That's okay. I like the literal translation of the Greek, which of course is a translation of the Aramaic Jesus used. But when you take that literally, what it's saying, it's wonderful. And it's captured to a degree in the Message translation I read. But I like the O'Loughlin translation better, in which it says almost identical to this. He says, I had better pay her some attention or she's going to put out my lights. This woman, get the image of this pompous guy and all his robes and all, and this little lady, she's coming ready to go to war. She's going to duke it out with him. She's going to pound him. She's going to jump up and down on his pulsating body, Now, can you imagine now the people hearing this who are listening to Jesus? They know these people. As I said, they've suffered with him in their own districts. Now, can you say, ha, 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 go get him, girl, kind of a thing. They wish they had a widow in their community who would go and put out the lights of their judge. So they're in hysterics. When they die down, Jesus makes two vital points. He says, your God is not like that judge. You don't have to beg him. You don't have to try to intimidate him. You don't have to do anything. He loves you. He's already involved with you. Therefore, pray without ceasing. Pray with persistence. What is he saying to us in our day? How do you flesh this out? You see, most of us have experienced, before we got very old, that life is not always fair. From the time I would guess that you were a little squirt and you realized your brothers and sisters who are older than you were going to bed later than you, and you go to your parents, it just ain't fair. Well, in the years since, all of us have experienced some injustice, and some of us have experienced enormous amounts.